Hi and welcome back to Bike Speeds. So this week we have this epic rebuild of this giant Escape. This video will include new headset bearings, brake pads and cables, bottom bracket bearings, new chain set, derailleurs both and cables, chain, wheel tensioning, mud guards and a full detail and clean. You can see what I'm just doing here. I'm just sort of feeling around the bike to see what's what. But we had this little tinging noise when we first took this bike in. You can hear that there, just that tick tick tick. But one of the spokes was very loose, so we addressed that as well with a retension of the entire wheel. Now you can see here how the chain is stretched. It's so worn that you can see how it doesn't even sit on the cogs where it should anymore. Now the issue with that, not only did the chain has done hundreds if not thousands of miles, that in turn has then worn out the group set. So that's why we did a full retune of the entire group set on this bike and replaced everything, because it was just so worn out. It had done its mileage, it had seen its last cycle and was well overdue to get everything replaced. So as you can see here, see how thin those little teeth, it sort of tells me this customer tends to use the small ring on this bike in the main. You can see how the centre cog there had a lot more metal on the teeth than the small cog. So if we put a new chain on there, it would have just skipped straight over that. There's no way that would have ribbed with a new chain. The whole lot worn out. Same with this derailleur, see how thin and pointy they are. With a derailleur like this, it's a more entry level group set, so it makes sense to just replace the entire part than it does to clean it up. The labour involved with cleaning that would outweigh the cost of simply replacing the part, which is, you know, although we do clean them quite regularly. You can see here the front derailleur, very stiff, very worn, but again this is a part that isn't expensive, so it makes sense just to swap that out for a new one, which is, you know, effectively what we were doing with this bike. The customer actually gave me the brief of he'd like this done like we do in our YouTube videos, where he wanted it brought up to a nice spec and back to ready to ride condition. So because we'd sort of got this green light from the customer, this was quite an involved job. We kind of stripped this frame right back to the bare bone so that we could really get stuck into this one. This was, you know, despite this bike just appearing to be like a commuter type bike, this was an incredibly satisfying process to clean everything up. I mean, you can see even here the mudguards were broken. Unfortunately, we actually had an identical set of mudguards to this in stock, which means on the face value the bike stayed the same, but it's all fresh and new. We had a little problem here with this screw in the bottom of the frame here. It completely rusted in. There was no way that was going to come out. It had a Phillips head and that had just completely rusted away. So we removed the mudguard and then we just drilled that out. Once we drilled it out, between that and fitting, I actually tapped it out and put a thread back in there so we could fit the new mudguard and you know, back in the original holes. So even things like the derailleur hanger there, we took all that off. That went through the ultrasonic cleaner. It just makes the difference, gets in all the nitty gritty spaces that you can't always do with a brush. And we also replaced the headset bearings. They were very stiff on there. We decided to do those as well. So like I say, every screw came out, everything into the ultrasonic cleaner that needed doing. There wasn't obviously an awful lot because most of it was being replaced, but things like these brakes, we got those through the ultrasonic cleaner and give everything a clean up and then re-lubricate the parts we were reusing. Really made this bike quite special. So, you know, it's just a case of going through everything. We're using like a fine nylon brush there just to work in the glass that the indicator for the gears is there, so that's all clean. And then we work on these pedals. Now I never put pedals in the ultrasonic cleaner, and these pedals didn't need bearing work, so I just cleaned those up on the outside, and you can see the difference here, what difference you can make even to a pedal with a nylon brush and a bit of water and, you know, a little bit of caution as to how you're cleaning it. And then obviously we're lubricating up all the parts, the pivot points on these brakes and a little bit of the silicone grease on the slider of the spring there, a little bit of copper slip on the pedals, these quick releases greased with white grease and copper slip. Now I also noticed that we had a bit of play in this rear wheel bearing. The bearings actually felt okay when I tightened them up. There was just a little bit of movement there, so we just put that in the vise and we just altered that just to work that play out. It is a cup and cone system, so that's absolutely fine to do. And then we put this wheel into the truing stand. We measure all the tensions, then we work around doing our truing. Before we're happy with where we've trued, then we re-measure everything, a few little minor adjustments, and that gives us our trued wheel with the correct tensions and everything correct on that wheel again, before we actually give this a little clean up with a little bit of chain cleaner on the insides there just to work that up. and then wash it down, and then we use a resin polish all the way around the wheel. That really shines it up and also protects that wheel. The water will then sit on that resin polish rather than, like dry paint, it soaks into dry paint, where polished paint leaves a nice film on the wheel that any water will just run straight off. A little bit of grease before the new cassette goes on there, and it's always a pleasure to do up a new cassette because everything's so clean and it just looks lovely. And then we start on the frame. So initially we're using a soap cleaner, and then we're using warm soapy water, a detailing brush. We spend a lot of time on things like these bottom bracket threads, a little brass bristle brush in there to really clean those threads up. And you'll see when I put the bottom bracket in, it's a finger turn, then it's not a problem to put it back in when you've cleaned all the threads up. So we dry that off with a microfiber towel, and then right now we're using the T-cut. This is like a sort of paint restorer really. It will work away at scratches, and I sort of focus what I'm doing on certain areas. So if I can see a scratch or a mark, I'll work hard on that. You can see there where the front derailleur sat, and then once I've polished everything, I'm quite happy. Now this frame had quite a few accessory bolts. The customer had said that he'd done, this bike did everything he wanted, so there was like lock brackets and light brackets, and obviously I don't know which of those he's currently using or not, so I tend to leave everything in situ so as the bike is given back as he is happy to use it, and so that's why I left all those on and worked my way around those. And then again, resin polish after the T-cutting, it will just bring that bike up with a lovely shine and protected. If a bike gets wet, the water will just run straight off it. Initially it just really makes these nice. You can see the reflection, you can see the light along that giant logo. The sharpness of the light reflection gets sharper as it gets cleaner. And then I'm working my way around the handlebars. I would like to say thank you to this customer on 3 levels. First of all, thank you for having the work done. This was not a cheap service and restoration, but the customer said this bike did everything that he wanted it to. He hadn't seen another bike that he wanted to buy, so he was happy to go ahead with this work. So thank you for having the work done. Thanks obviously for the extended loan of this bike so that we could film the process. I know this customer is actually a fan of our YouTube and watches all our videos, so it was actually quite a pleasure to be doing a bike for someone that we knew was going to watch this video at the end and hopefully be pleased with what he sees. So thanks for the extended loan, and also thanks to him and his family for being customers of mine for some years now. They're staunch supporters of what we get up to at Bike Speeds, and we appreciate all that. Now you can see there me spinning the handlebars, how free and easy those headset bearings were after they were done. They were quite stiff when the bike came in, but what a difference it made just by replacing those bearings. It was amazing really when we spun the handlebars and they spun like that. So we're getting the new mud guards on. Back go the wheels, everything's beginning to go together now. A little bit of copper slip on the threads of this bottom bracket. You can see I literally spun that in with my hands, and then I torqued it up. Now I'm using there a snap-on torque wrench there, because a snap-on torque wrench will actually do both left and right-handed threads. A lot of torque wrenches will actually only do a right-hand thread torque, but will undo a thread with a ratchet. And this is my other torque wrench that I use there on the pedals, which is a right-handed torque wrench. It won't do the left-handed threads that a bottom bracket needs. So that's why even in that little job there, that little scene, you actually got 2 torque wrenches used there, and that's the way I flow. I've got 3 or 4 torque wrenches that I all use for different reasons, and you gradually get to know these things. Just checking the derailleur hanger, the alignment of that, which was all okay before we put on the new derailleur. So we're really beginning to look nice now. New chain set, new derailleurs, new cassettes, new front derailleur, torqued on, obviously everything's torqued up. Now this little orange ticket here is a real pet hate of mine. You use that to line up the derailleur with your chain set, and the amount of times, I mean hundreds of times, that is left on by people who build bikes, and then it against the chain set, and it just is a pet hate. I always peel that off afterwards. It's purely an installation sticker, should never be on your bike. So have a look at your bikes in your sheds. If you've got that sticker there, it's wrong, take it off. So now we're just putting on the brakes, which is new brake blocks, new cables, new V-pipe guides, and so the brakes are all nice. And then all these little fittings that were on the frame, we're just putting a little bit of grease on the threads so that they don't stick in the future. All bolts are replaced there with all new ones, including the brakes, and then goes on our fresh chain. And you can see this is really beginning to look nice now. Brand new cables right the way through the entire bike. We use our super slick range of cables, which are a lovely stainless steel cables, so they never rust, and they look lovely, and they've got a smoothness to them which really gives good performance to your gears and your brakes. So that's what this bike has now got. Then we put in the new Derailleur cables as well. This is sort of heading towards the stage where you can see the bike coming together, and I can begin to feel or appreciate the work that I've been doing to a bike as I get to this stage. And it's lovely when you see a bike coming together like this. You're like, yeah, I'm on the money here. So if you are new to our channel, we're having a massive growth really on the channel, and we're thrilled with the way the channel's going. But if you are new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, especially hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, be one of the first to comment, because comments always help a channel and a video to be reached out and served up by the algorithms of YouTube. So make sure you're one of the first to comment. We did have a commenter last week who's in the middle of the ocean somewhere watching our videos, so it's nice to know that we reach more than just the world, that we're actually reaching the sea as well. So that was a nice thought. And as you can see, what a difference to this bike. It's gone from tired to looking like brand new again, and this bike's got many hundreds if not thousands of miles left. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week.